You don't exist. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowed like sis. Dead up perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look up better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the 7th part of What If Deku in Hero Academia joins One Punch Man. Special note, this fanfic is written in a masterpiece of Spark 3 on fanfiction.net. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Diversify, Drive Knight, Yaoyorozu, Kaminari. Yaoyorozu and Kaminari were both back with Drive Knight like before he stationed them in their separate containers. Kaminari still continuing to train with absorbing and discharging his power at the same time and rapid transitions between the two. Yaoyorozu on the other hand was combat sparring with Drive Knight himself using spears. She noted that the techniques that he was using were the same ones that Stinger was performing the other day. As she was blown back by a blow that sent her spiraling across the room, she was preparing to get up and fight again when she was halted by Drive Knight's outstretched hand. You have improved slightly in your footwork and combat stance. It is safe to assume that your time with Stinger has improved your combat ability. Drive Knight said with Momo nodding in reply. Yes, he gave me some pointers on how to wield the staff as well as the importance the movement of the body can have on your attacks with staff-type weapons. Good, I had hoped as such. I have other propositions for you to learn under a multitude of heroes similarly. Drive Knight said with a monotone voice. That's fine, but why? You seem to be able to freely download different combat styles at will. Can't you just teach me? Momo asked curiously. Learning the forms and styles are one thing, but having a living, breathing person that has experience and a feel for the art will be more effective as an instructor. If you can mimic their style and alter it to make it your own, it will make you a better fighter. But wouldn't that just make me a jack of all trades? Momo asked. People often only remember part of that statement. The saying goes, a jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. As he spoke, hole opened up next to Drive Knight. Rising up from the ground was a black metallic box that went up to Drive Knight's hip. Even I have different weapons used for when I'm out in the field, observed. As he spoke quickly as a flash, Drive Knight body transformed. First he transformed into a centaur hybrid, then a motorcycle, and finally a golden variant of himself before going back to his original form. Momo was shocked by the speed of the transformation. She didn't even see the shapes of the box move or his body in mid-transformation once, only the final product of the transformation. I was interested in your ability due to that possibility of creating anything necessary from a given situation, which is why I was disappointed by your use of it in combat. Drive Knight continued to monologue. She wanted to counter by saying that combat wasn't the main focus of being a hero back where she was from, but he wouldn't understand what she meant. But thinking of how everything that was going on back home, she started to wonder if that was the best option for her to take with her quirk. She hoped to mostly be a support-based hero, but with the decline of heroes, there is no guarantee that she could stay off the front lines for long. Okay, I understand. I'll try to learn all I can from the heroes you have presented for me. Momo said with conviction. Excellent. Was Drive Knight's reply before the glass on the side of the arena they were in started to glow and present 4 different folders. She approached the glass and looked at the titles of each folder. They read, Blades, Ranged, Guns, and Misc. I understand your hesitation towards firearms, so I decided to separate them into a different category. Miscellaneous stands for weapons that don't fit into the other categories. Drive Knight said as he approached behind her. She thanked him and then looked over the categories available. She ultimately decided on choosing the Blades folder. She didn't have much enhanced experience with blades, although she was somewhat familiar with them. She remembered creating 2 for her and Gyro during the Uschi incident that happened so long ago. As the folder opened, she saw something peculiar. A number of names were grayed out. They were the top 4 class heroes. They looked familiar to her somehow, though like she had seen them before. The blacked out ones are disposed of for the moment. They are Atomic Samurai's apprentices. They were in the gym for him when you were picked up. Given that your friend was with them, they were my first choice. I thought they looked familiar. What about this one? She said, pointing to someone with the name Spring Mustache. It seems he as well is gone. His master as well as Atomic Samurai are a part of the Council of Swordsmen, which seems to have had some matters to attend to, away from here. Oh, they had left on some mission, away from the continent. Really? Interesting. Drive Knight said curiously, making a note to check up on that. Momo checked over the rest of her options. A majority of them were from A-class heroes, and there was one B-class hero named Wild Horn. Ultimately, she decided on one of the heroes called Shadowbind. He was a ninja hero that wore traditional ninja garb. Interesting choice. Any reason you decided on that hero in particular? He reminds me of someone from my past, she said simply. That is a girl, Drive Knight said simply. Oh, well, thank you for the correction. It's an understandable mistake, common really, but for now, let us continue with your spear training. Drive Knight said, proceeding back towards the center of the arena, to begin practicing again. Are you human? Pig God, Metal Bat, Koda, Sato. Sato had the beginning of his day to himself since Kirishima and Darkshine had left out that morning for their thing at Silver Fang's dojo, but he didn't let that stop him from going to the gym like he would normally, lifting weights and do all the standard exercises that Darkshine had them go over the previous day. He took a curious look at the gravity machine and considered using the device but thought better of it. He was the only one in the room and he didn't know how the device worked or if it had any safety function to prevent the person inside from being crushed like a pancake, so he ignored and continued training by himself. He was interrupted from his training by Pig God stepping into the gym. You're alone today, he said, making his way across the area to the machine Sato was at. Yeah, Darkshine and Kirishima had some business with Bang. Oh, that, I do remember the association message about Bang's invitation. You didn't want to go. Ugh, I didn't know what to do really, but given that you didn't show up as well, I thought you wanted me to stay here. Makes sense. Well, I'm glad you did stay because we're venturing out today. Partially the reason why I came here early so you weren't too tired just in case of a monster attack. Sato was excited by the news of going out into the world. He was curious about what this world had to offer, and the association's base was starting to wear thin with how gray and metallic everything looked. He immediately got off the machine, being mindful to clean it off and reset the setting to default before following Pig God out and into a waiting car. Where are we going? Sato inquired. We're headed to our city, Pig God said simply. Sato didn't really know a lot about the places here. From his friends in class, he gathered that the cities weren't much different from what they were used to, but things such as brands and certain things would be foreign to him. He was curious about why the cities didn't have actual names, but only alphabets attached to them instead. While simple and easy to get the instruction out to the public of a threat, but people probably didn't really identify from where they're from like they did back at home, especially people from America for that example. That train of thought got him thinking of sports and things of that nature. What did this place do for entertainment and things of that nature? Instead of lingering on these questions, he decided to ask Pig God. Entertainment, huh? Well, I know today was a major video game tournament going on, and occasionally there is a thing called the Super Fights tournament that all the top-tier martial artists come to fight and see who is the best. The cities constantly compete for a safety rating as well. Safety rating? Sato asked, confused. The safety rating is something held by committees of each city to tell which is safest, as the name implies. This rating helps people and businesses to decide where they would like to settle. It also helps the association distribute heroes more effectively. Fascinating, was all Sato said as he digested the information. A safety rating that would drive business to or away from a city. Was this world really that dangerous? He wondered. As Pig God continued to talk about the things people do to pass the time. There were indeed sports like baseball here and other smaller sports that sounded familiar to their world, but most multi-city events were done by the committee each city held. As the two arrived at our city and began their pacing about there, were immediately alerted to a monster attack going on. The monster had a threat level of tiger. The two heroes made it to the scene to see a four-armed monster. It looked like a generic muscular cyclops walking through overturning cars and throwing them at the fleeing civilians. Pig God quicker than his bulk would imply intercepted the car with his body, saving a girl and her father from being crushed by a car. They thanked Pig God for his help as they continued to run away from the scene. Sato quickly opened his pouch and popped one of his pills and charged forth to the threat while yelling his super name Sugar Rush. The monster recognized the charging hero and smiled happily. He stood still ready to receive the attack. As Sato neared to deliver his barrage center mass, he found that each blow was blocked by one of the creature's hands. Not a single blow got through, which surprised him, jumping back before the monster could retaliate, but the monster only laughed before pushing forward to match him. The speed of which complete overtook his speed, moving backwards, appearing in front of him again, and punching him straight in the gut with two of his arms, sending Sato flying into a shop's window and drawing blood from his lips. That he wiped off as Sato made to stand up. The monster was in front of the store, taunting him, but quickly came to a halt as a shadow eclipsed him. He quickly turned, doing another strong punch to the gut of the man behind him, but to his surprise the large man didn't move an inch or react at all. He tired again on receiving the same result, and then did his own barrage of blows, using all four of his arms to attack, but none of it fazed the wall of fat before him. Suddenly he found his arms restrained in a bear hug. Impossible to move from the hold, he was suddenly lifted into the air and watched in horror, as the hero, more importantly supposed human in front of him, jaw somehow dislocated and opened to swallow him whole. Sato sat in utter bewilderment, disgust, fear, and many more mixed emotions as he watched the cyclops that was bigger than he was get swallowed whole, his legs failing as his upper body was already in the supposed man's mouth and down his stomach. He was so shocked that no words left his lips. He felt that familiar numbness start to take over his mind. Maybe it had spread faster than he thought, and he was just seeing things. He quickly took another pill from his container, and he was instantly revitalized, and the numbness in his mind was pushed back, making him see clearly, and to his dismay he still saw the scene as before. The creature's feet were just going down the hero mouth and out of sight, his stomach bulging out of somewhat with the monster inside it. The hero then took a step towards him, holding out his hand towards the young hero, which took a hesitant and shaky step back, surprising the hero somewhat until realization dawned on him, and he slowly retracted his hand and took a step back to give the boy some room. He just stared at him with wide eyes. The teen managed to find his voice again as he spoke in an astonished tone. "What did you just do? Spit him out!" Sato exclaimed, taking a tentative step forward. "Can't, it's dead," Pig God said calmly, shocking the teen by how calm the man was with what he just did. He looked at the hero's stomach, which was somewhat bulging before, but almost already returned to its original size. He thought back to what Darkshine said and how the way people described his fights as ravenous. Did that mean he eats every monster he encounters? He wondered. Why Sato didn't understand his mind, just didn't comprehend what he just saw. This monster, just ate a monster and digested it in a matter of seconds. "Are you even human?" was the one question that sprung to his lips. "I am. My body is just unique," Pig God said, simply not wanting to give his secrets away. Taking the hint, Sato didn't pry further, scared that he too may become this man's next meal or whatever he did with his victims. "What happens to the people you eat?" Sato questioned, starting to walk closer to the edge of the window as Pig God backed up to give him room. "Depends on what I want to do with them. Could be destruction or salvation," Pig God said simply. "I see," was also Sato said. He didn't know where to go from here. He was at a loss for words. Thankfully, he didn't need to, as another siren started this time. It was for a threat-level wolf, and the attack was happening at a nearby school. Sato was stricken out of his stupor almost immediately and gestures for them to take off, which Pig God agreed to. He surprisingly kept up really well with Sato, even in his sugar-rushed state. They came upon an open area with a large armadillo or a sandslash from Pokemon. It was sniffing around on the grounds, using its elongated tongue to sense its prey. The door seemed to have been banged on but held the creature from its assault. He saw Pig God stepping forwards and tentatively held his hand out to stop the big man. "I'll handle this, okay?" he said hesitantly, and Pig God nodded in understanding. Sato potted another pill and charged the creature. The creature whipped its head around at the sound and saw the approaching teen and stood to its full height. It was almost the same size as Midoriya. It shot out its tail in defense. Sato sidestepped the attack, grabbing the creature's tail, and then threw it away from the building. He wanted to place himself between the building and the people inside. The scales on the creature bristled as its anger spiked and charged at Sato, launching out with its clawed hands trying to claw his chest. He dodged to the left and launched a punch to creature face, staggering it backwards. He launched another punch with his right hand, but that was caught by the creature clawed hand, scratching his wrist slightly. The creature lunged out again as with his other hand, but that was caught by the wrist. The two sat there in a power struggle, one trying to overpower the other with each other's hand in their grasp. Suddenly Sato heard a familiar screech. The creature immediately began to shake its head, and his grip loosened, allowing Sato to peel away from it just in time as a number of birds began circling around the creature. It tried to move away from them, but the birds continued to swarm around him, causing the creature to lash out at them, but most of its attacks only hit air. Sato took the opportunity to pop another pill. As the numbness returned, it cleared his mind, and he noticed the birds were leading the creature away and Sato chased after it, with Pig God about to follow along before being stopped by a rampaging metal bat stopping in front of him. "Where is it? Where is the thing dumb enough to threaten my sister?" Metal Bat was pissed and out for blood. Pig God then noticed a rather colorful fellow following behind Bad, a bit out of breath. Before he replied, a lot of birds surrounded it and lured it away. Pig God said while pointing off in the direction of a huge flock of birds some ways away now, but before Bad could follow it, he was stopped by the colorful fellow. "Bad, please, I got this. Go check if your sister is okay first." Koda pleaded mostly for the monster's life. He knew if Bad got to it, he would kill it on the spot. The only chance he has for it to survive was to distract him with something else that he would find even more important, and he was right. Bad looking at him before nodding. "Pig God, keep an eye on him, would ya?" he said as headed off to the building, screaming his sister's name at the top of his lungs. "I assume you're the one in control of those birds?" Pig God inquired. "Yes, my name is Koda. Isn't Sato supposed to be with you?" Koda replied, looking around for his friend. "He went after the monster." Pig God gestured towards the birds again, making Koda worry. "We have to go help him then," Koda said as he and Pig God took off after the monster. Sato was catching up to the monster surrounded by birds. It had chased them into a nearby forest area near the school, and the birds finally stopped swarming him, leaving him, but before he could ponder why, Sato began attacking him, hitting the creature in the back before jumping away from a tail swipe the creature had in retaliation. The two locked into combat once again before being interrupted by the same screech from before, this time much closer. The creature realized that a number of squirrels from the tree started throwing acorns at him, pelting him, and then the birds came back, but before they surrounded him again, he stuck his tongue out and sensed another being behind him, assuming that he was the source of the noise and the animals it charged forth, but was stopped by being tackled to the ground by the hero he was facing before. He quickly spun the hero off of him and out of the bird tornadoes surrounding them. Sato quickly got back up and continued to attack the creature. The birds would leave holes in their swarm as opening for Sato punches to land directly on the creature's blind spots. The creature would only try and retaliate from where the attack came from, but only hit open air as Sato repositioned. This went on for some time. As the creature tired, the birds left all at once. Forcing the creature to close its eyes, Sato seized his chance and used his Sugar Rush barrage to fully incapacitate the creature. Sato raised a thumb up in the air, signaling that it was okay for Koda to come out. He did, and Sato offered his friend a high five. "Thanks for the assist, man," Sato said. No problem. Now what do we do with it?" Koda questioned. "We call the association and wait. They'll take him away," Pig God said lazily. Before the group can start the call, however, they heard Bad in the background screaming like a banshee and getting closer, making Koda nervous. Seeing the dismay in the two teens' faces, Pig God fought quickly and ate the creature. To the utter shock of both teens present, Bad had just shown up after he finished devouring the creature whole. "Hey, is that monster dead yet?" Bad said, wielding his bat threateningly. "It's gone now," Sato said dismissively, glaring at Pig God while Koda just stared at Pig God in shock. Seeing the stares, Metal Bat pieced together what happened and put his back on his shoulder and smirked. "Good job, Pig god that things deserve to be eaten, and yeah, I know it's weird as shit that he just eats things whole like that, but it gets the job done so it doesn't matter. Dad said before hearing his sister call his name and him gesturing for Koda to follow along as the two walked away. Sato almost snapped at Pig God. What the hell, man? That monster was totally defenseless. There was no reason to kill it. Sato said angrily, but his tune completely changed when Pig God completely barfed the monster back up completely intact. Now Sato was confused but remembered his words from earlier salvation or destruction. You don't know metal back like I do. He wouldn't let this creature live if it threatened his sister in any capacity. Pig God said calmly. Sato, the kids want to meet their savior, Koda said as he continued back towards them before seeing the creature that Pig God swallowed back on the ground in front of the two. He looked up to Sato, and he put up a finger to his mouth in a shushing notion. Pig God told them that he'll get the creature to the association before Sato began following Koda back towards the school, both teens stating their thanks to Pig God as they left. Deliberations, Class 1A. The class was back in their original spot in the common room. Everyone arrived and was conversing between each group. The second largest group was made of Kirishima, Mina, Ojiro, Toru, Kaminari, and Tokoyami. Most of the guys were huddled around Kirishima's phone as he showed the fight between Darkshine and Deku himself and smiling and gasping at the spectacle. Whoa, that Darkshine guy is really tough, Kaminari said. Yeah, I know, right, so manly, Kirishima said, clutching his shirt with his fist. It was something, the pressure was intense, Ojiro said. I thought we felt something as we were leaving the space, Tokoyami commented. Yeah, like a strange gust of wind just blew past us, Toru said, waving her hands excitedly again, even though she was visible to them all now. You don't have to do the whole waving your arms thing anymore, you know, since we can see you now, Mina commented next to her. Oh yeah, it's just a habit at this point, she said, smiling bashfully. Matter of fact, I know someone is having a fun time noticing you, she said as she took out her own phone and showed the girl a picture, making the girl flush even more in embarrassment, covering her face with her hands. Wow, how did you get that picture? Toru exclaimed silently before thinking about it. Some about everyone that was there at that moment. Deku was preoccupied with Koda at the time. Tokoyami was unlikely to take this picture, which only left one possible person. Kirishima, how could you? Toru exclaimed, making the girl glare over in his direction. Making the red-head teen rub the back of his head with an apologetic look. She bribed me, was all he managed to say under the girl's scrutiny. Gyro leaned forward and took a glance at the picture, chuckling slightly before joining the conversation. Ah, they make a cute couple, Gyro teased. I know, right? Mina added, making the invisible girl blush some more before more and more people started to see what all the conversation was about. Soon both Ojiro and Toru were being teased about the compromising photo. Another group was Sato, Koda, Shoji, Asui, Mainta, and Aoyama. Sato had just got done telling them of his time spent with Pig God in the field and how he usually fights by eating monsters, making others question if he really saw what he thought he did, but when the quiet boy Koda reconfirmed his stance, the group was much more convinced and somewhat concerned about that behavior. That seems weird, to say the least, Shoji said. Inhumane if you ask me, but he could be a monster like Sweet Mask then, Asui said bluntly, making the other look at her in surprise. We don't know if Sweet Mask is a monster for sure. Dogman could be wrong, Aoyama defended, making Asui just roll her eyes. Dogman has a hypersensitive sense of smell. He can tell if there's a monster in the city and is the main caretaker Q City. He even smelled a monster from 30 kilometers away on my first day, and he could tell that I was different when we met from the regular people. He said the same about Aoyama too. Asui made her case to the rest of the group. That sounds pretty concrete. If you ask me, why are you so against the theory? Mainta asked. Because he really dislikes monsters, hates them, and kills them without a second thought. If he were one, why would he have such hatred for them? Aoyama queried. Maybe he's trying to keep up appearances and is projecting, Shoji reasoned. Anyways, I don't think Pig God's a monster. He says he's not one, but essentially only said that he was just built different, making everyone in the group chuckle somewhat to that ending. It was like Shoji said, this world really is just built different. Minta commented, making the small group chuckle somewhat. The last group was everyone else in the class. Kaken, you seem angry about something? Midoriya asked, causing him to scoff at the notion. I'm fine, I don't need you looking after me, Bakugou commented. He's mad that he lost the video game tournament this evening, Todoroki said offhandedly, making Bakugou send a death glare in Todoroki direction. At least I didn't lose in the first round, Bakugou barked. I'm not a close-range fighter, it was to be expected. Todoroki shrugged his shoulders indifferently. Bakugou glared one more time at him and then marched out of the room. I'm confused, what does hand-to-hand combat have to do with a video game? Momo asked, perplexed. The tournament had a VR system that allowed your body movements from real life to the game as well. Wow, that seems really advanced, Midoriya commented. Yeah, in a system like that I bet martial artists have a major advantage, Uraraka said. That's what I originally thought as well, but it seems the winner was someone using a controller instead, Todoroki said. That person must have had no life, Gyro commented. Well, he won 5 million yen from the tournament, so I guess it was worth it, Todoroki reasoned. 5 million? Uraraka nearly fainted. I stand corrected then. Who won? Gyro asked, retracting her statement. Don't know, they never told us to protect the individual. You had to be in the venue where he won to know who he was, Todoroki replied. The groups continued to talk and discuss about each other's day before everyone went off to sleep. Ojiro was about to leave when he felt a tug on his tail. He looked to find it was Toru, trying her best to be as incognito as possible to stop from being teased again. He nodded his head in understanding, but continued his way out of the room with everyone else, before quickly returning as if he forgot something in the room. What's up? He said as he sat down next to her, not too close but enough to not be weird. I just wanted your opinion about my choice I need to make, regarding the master I choose. Bang or Bomb? Bomb's martial arts is just like Bang, described much more offensive than his. You should have been there, he was able to cut the through boulder with just his fingertips, it's so awesome and dangerous. She said, her sentence trailing from excitement to hesitance. I can only imagine, but aren't quirks dangerous too? When you think about it, we literally have a guy that can create explosions out of his hands for fun, and between the two of us is not the most mentally stable of the bunch either. He mentioned, making the girl laugh. Yeah, that's true. So are you saying I should go with Bomb's teaching then? She asked. I don't know. Bang's techniques offer a great balance of defense and offense. I don't know how practical a purely offensive style would have over it, Ojiro pondered. Oh, Zombieman said something about that. If I remember correctly, he said he wanted me to be like a glass cannon, or in my case, an invisible cannon. My invisibility is the greatest defense, so combining that with the greatest offense would suit me, he figured. That makes sense, but also relies on the opponent not being able to find you, which may not always be the case, Ojiro countered, making the girl ponder again. Well, in that case, you can be there for me, she blurted almost too quickly, making the boy blush somewhat. Or anyone I'm with, she clarified. Well, that could work just as well, and it seems you made your decision. Yeah, I'll train under Master Bomb and totally kick your butt after I'm done, she mocked. Sure you will. We can go over defensive forms as well outside of class to better get you rounded as well, Ojiro mentioned, standing up. Awa, you do want to spend more time with me? She mocked, standing up but slightly crouching back down in pain, making Ojiro take a step closer to examine her. Are you all right? Yeah, I'm fine. Earlier just had a few passing spars with Ochako because Bomb wanted to see what I was capable of. That girl can really throw a person, you know that? That gunhead martial arts ain't no joke, she said as she stood up more slowly this time, only to realize Ojiro offered her his back. What are you doing? She asked skeptically. Giving you a hand. If you're going to be training tomorrow under Bomb, if he's anything like Bang, you're gonna need all the rest you can get, Ojiro said, making the girl blush and her heart beat faster. She didn't say anything, but his answer came in the form of a small weight being pressed into his back as her hands around his neck. You're such a Boy Scout. I bet you just hoped I pressed myself against your back, she said with a teasing grin. surprising the teen and unbalancing them for a moment before he stabilized again and poked her with his tail. "Don't make such comments when I'm carrying you, and of course not. I just care about you," he murmured softly, his face going red. The only thing she did in response was to hug his neck tighter and laid her head on his shoulder as he carried her back towards her room. He used his tail to open her door and then set her down in front of it. "Aw, you didn't want to join me inside?" she teased before laughing at his embarrassed expression. "Just try and get some rest," was all the boy said as he left for his room, which wasn't too far from hers, only across and 2 doors down. Before he entered, he heard her say goodnight, and he replied in kind before they both went inside and went to bed. Class now in session. Zombieman, Takoyami, Toru. Toru was nervous but excited about her opportunity to train under one of the best martial arts masters in the world, but before she left she wanted to personally tell Bang her choice, thinking it would be good to thank the man for the opportunity. The group was walking through Z City before a monster alarm began to blare, the threat level wolf and tiger. The group decided to investigate, finding a sentient flower plant tearing through the streets. It looked like a mutated Venus flytrap monster, with its mouth open filled with serrated teeth that was singing. The monster was in the midst of picking up a human with its vines. Takoyami reacted quickly, shooting out dark shadow to cut the vines down and grabbing the person and putting them down to run away. The plant creature let out a roar of disapproval before it was quickly silenced by a gunshot from Zombieman's Desert Eagle penetrating through the creature's mouth and out the other side. The group approached the creature before it immediately sprang into action. Its vines had wrapped around the 3 of their legs, suspending them in midair. Zombie Man thought, quickly shooting the vines wrapped around his ankle before firing again and again at the creature as he progressed towards the creature. Dark Shadow quickly cut Takoyami loose before gliding him over towards the still suspended Toru, who pulled at her restraints to try and get free, but to no luck. Takoyami, using his fallen angel, quickly cut her loose before carrying her back down towards the floor. The 2 teens turned around just in time for Zombieman to have foregone his pistols and pull out dual swords. He used them to cut through the vines that the creature shot out to defend itself, culminating in him bisecting the creature in half before cutting again in horizontal pattern before the blades were just a blur of motion to the 2 teens' eyes, and monster just laid there in pieces of its former self. The vines it had sprouted quickly wilted to nothing. "Well, that takes care of that. You 2 okay?" Zombieman said as he swished his blades clean before stuffing them back into his coat. "We're fine," Takoyami answered, Toru nodding beside him. "Good, let's head over to the next one," Zombieman said casually as he moved along from the chopped-up corpse. The group continued to walk before being surprised by who they came across. It was Bang and Midoriya. They seemed to be loading something onto a bus from the association. It had the title Monster Detainment on it. Bang noticed them and waved, catching Midoriya's attention as well, who ran over to greet them, followed closely by Bang. "I assume you took care of the other monster that appeared?" Bang asked. "Yup, plant monsters of some kind, now mince meat," Zombieman said casually. "What brings you guys out here?" Midoriya questioned the group. Zombieman only pointed a thumb at Toru as she stepped forward and took a bow in front of Bang while saying, "I'm sorry, Mr. Bang, I thank you for the opportunity, but I've decided to train under your brother Bomb," she said with a degree of formality her friends weren't used to. Bang moved his fist to his palm and bowed back in return. "It is much all right. Finding your correct style is the most important part of being a martial artist. You are always welcome if you change your mind," he reminded her. "Thank you," she said in return. Before any more time could be spent talking, the alarms began again. This time a monster in District 7 threat level demon. Midoriya looked at Bang, who pointed in the direction that was, and with a goodbye Midoriya was off in a flash. Bang let out a sigh. "Monsters have been appearing more frequently lately, and that boy's been running around any chance he could get to stop them," he said as he watched the boy go. "He also wants to save them." "I see," as the bus begins to roll away, Zombieman noted. "Indeed," Bang said as he went to follow after Midoriya. "Hope that doesn't get him killed," Zombieman murmured as he turned the other way, beginning to walk towards Bomb Dojo. "Come on guys, we're going. The quicker we are, the quicker you all can get to work." "We aren't going to help them," Toru said, worried, which got a genuine laugh from Zombieman. "I would be more worried about the monster if I were you," A simple demon isn't much cause for concern. He waved dismissively. Continuing to move forward, the two teens turned to look at each other, before shrugging their shoulders and following along. The group made it towards Bomb's dojo. Toru was still confused why the man decided to build his dojo in such a place and how it came to be. The crater that Bomb's dojo was located in was a steep 20 meters down and 200 meters in diameter. Zombiemen stopped before making their way down to the confusion of the two teens present. "We aren't going down there?" Takoyami asked. "Nope, we're going to wait until his class dismisses," Zombieman said, leaning and sitting down on the edge of the hole. But before the two teens could rest along with him, he held out a hand to stop the two. "Hold on, you two takes laps around the dojo in the meantime," Zombieman said. "What? Come on, I don't want to be tired before starting my classes," Toru whined. "Think of it as getting your blood pumping in preparation," Zombieman said casually, earning a pouted look from Toru as she and Takoyami began stretching, getting ready to run. They both managed at least one lap before Bomb's dojo finally began to let out for classes. Toru and Takoyami were just getting done with their first lap before Zombieman gestured for them to follow him down. The class that passed him must have been a different one that they saw previously, given that none of the members' faces Toru could remember from the other day. As the group made their way down, Bomb welcomed them with a large smile. "I take this to mean that I am the one you chose?" he said with a grin. "Yes, we took a slight detour to decline Bang personally before arriving," Zombieman stated. "That is fine. My next class will begin in about an hour. For now, please make yourself at home," Bomb said, extending his hand inside his dojo. The group took the offer and walked inside. As the hour came closer, more and more people started to make their way inside towards their seats. Zombieman and Takoyami took this as their sign to leave, as both were easily drawing the attention of a number of the students, but before they left out the dojo completely, Bomb followed them outside. "Are you sure neither of you would like to stay and learn as well?" Bomb suggested. "No thanks, martial arts isn't really my style, I prefer weapons," Zombieman said. "And you, young man? I'm sure your friend would love to have a familiar face," Bomb said. "I'm not a close-range fighter either. Besides, I don't want to cause unnecessary disruptions," he said as he pushed a button on his helmet, retracting it back to show his face, taking the old man by surprise, but he was shocked even more when a black figure emerged from his back. "Not every day you find people like us," Dark Shadow mentioned, gesturing to himself and Takoyami. "I see. Well, you certainly travel with unusual company," Bomb mentioned. "Courtesy of the Hero Association," Zombieman remarked. "We'll be doing our own training close by," Zombieman said as they started walking away. Bomb nodded and went back inside to teach his class. Most of the class were obviously sending curious looks to the new person in the room, who sat somewhat further away from everyone else. Bomb's entrance immediately brought the class murmurs to a close. He introduced Toru to the class, and everyone greeted her, which she returned. The training began with a form of dynamic stretches, a couple of which were unique to Toru, making her struggle a bit to keep up with everyone else. The next exercise was a flurry of punches and kicks towards the air. Following that, the class had been ordered outside, where they were ordered to run around the perimeter of the dojo. The problem, Toru noted, was that he wanted them to run around the complex a total of 100 times. Predictably, Toru soon began to lag behind the rest of her class, but she held up longer than she thought she would, being able to stay with the class for half of the laps needed before starting to lag behind. The big as the diameter of the dojo being only 100 meters around, but multiply that by 100 and she was having to sprint for nearly 10 kilometers without rest. She was surprised that class didn't have any gripes about her slowing them down, but realized that as she finally finished her laps, a couple minutes after everyone else, that the lesson didn't continue until the last person finished. When she finished her laps, Bomb immediately continued his lessons. He had divided all the students with a single stone monolith each. He instructed each student to attack the monolith with the same attacks they learned at the beginning of the session. Toru was special. Instead of a stone monolith, she was stuck with a wooden structure. She gave a tentative punch, slightly shivered as the pain vibrated through her hand. Though the structure was wood, it was still incredibly durable, given that it barely moved from her attack. She continued like this, with everyone else not wanting to show how weak she was before switching to kicks when her hand felt like they were going to break. Bomb had revolved around her, telling her things that would improve her form and what she was doing wrong when attacking. Eventually, they all went back inside and began to listen to Bomb speak on the human anatomy, more specifically the weaknesses of the human body or any organism with similar physical traits. The lessons would continue for the next 1 hour before more rigorous training would occur, which would include sparring, counter-maneuvers, footwork, and other exercises. Zombieman and Tokoyami made their way out of the hole that was Bomb's dojo. Dark Shadow immediately exited out of Tokoyami. The two crested the crater. "So what's the plan for us, Coach?" Dark Shadow questioned, going up in front of the hero, surprising him slightly. "Well, it's something dealing with you too. I'm curious though, what exactly are you?" "Me, I'm this gloomy guy Shadow and his best friend," Dark Shadow commentated. "And my worst enemy," Tokoyami murmured. "Well, this enemy is also your savior," Dark Shadow shot back at the boy. "So I guess you guys share each other's thoughts since you share the same body, but do you share each other's pain as well?" Zombieman questioned. "Yup, we do share thoughts, but pain, nah," Dark Shadow said, crossing his arms. Zombieman nodded his head and came to a stop. In a clearing around 50 meters away from the crater. Dark Shadow quickly went back to Tokoyami and joined in with him. "Is he on some set time limit?" Zombieman questioned. "No, it's just strenuous to constantly keep him out," Tokoyami mentioned. "I see. Well, can he turn intangible?" Zombieman asked. "No, not that I'm aware of," Tokoyami replied. Zombieman began to run his chin in thought before quickly pulling out his pistol and firing in Tokoyami's direction. The surprise attack took the boy off guard, and the shot landed as Dark Shadow immediately came back out to defend his partner from further harm. "Well, that's our first lesson. Activation time and deactivation time on your little buddy here," Zombieman said as he put his gun away. What do you mean?" Tokoyami said, getting up, his chest stinging from the rubber round he just took. He was somewhat happy that he took their advice on changing from paint to rubber bullets, as it saved time on washing his clothes after every session. "The problem I see with you is when your buddy is out, it leaves you vulnerable. We can focus on your close-range mode later, but for now, how far can you send the little guy out?" Zombieman questioned. "About 20 meters, Tokoyami replied. "All right, we're going to play a game similar to a snowball fight. Try to hit someone and don't get hit in return. My ammo versus your little buddy. Other than that, anything goes," Zombieman said as he loaded a full clip of rubber bullets. He began to walk from the clearing into the crowded forest. There were numerous trees and objects that he or Dark Shadow could get snagged on, but he assumed that was the point of this exercise. He wanted to decrease Dark Shadow's deployment and retreatment. Began the exercise about 10 meters apart, and Zombieman shot his weapon in the air to signal the start and completely disappeared from Tokoyami's sight. Tokoyami, not wanting to make himself an easy target, began to move, weaving through the tree. His eyes searching for where the hero could be. His thoughts were cut off as he felt a stinging pain on his shoulder as he was hit, turning in the directions to see Zombieman so meters away. He shot out Dark Shadow. The hero began to move, juking and dodging away from Dark Shadow attacks before Tokoyami figured he was going too far, tangling himself up in the trees. He recalled him, but as he was recalling, Zombieman went on the offense, firing his weapon towards Tokoyami. Given that Dark Shadow was still returning him, attempting was strained. He was struck 3 more times before getting behind a tree for cover. Dark Shadow finally managed to get back, looking over his partner. "Tokoyami, are you okay?" he asked in worry. "Yes, I'm fine. We can't overextend like that again," Tokoyami said as he looked around for the hero, only managing brief glimpses of his jacket flowing through the wind. They needed to move around, but he would undoubtedly see where he went given the area. "Dark Shadow, I need you to cause a distraction to grow as large as you can and cover me. I last saw him around south-southwest, trying to obscure his vision the best you can and then return to me, but in a roundabout way," Tokoyami instructed, and Dark Shadow nodded his head, growing around 10% larger before destroying a bunch of the trees and scattered them about in the given direction. Tokoyami started running before he decided to climb. Without Dark Shadow, it proved much more difficult than he originally thought it would be. He made it to the top of the tree and managed to find a purchase near its roots, and just like instructed him, Dark Shadow began to slowly make its way towards him, making pit stops. turning and moving in different directions while simultaneously cutting off large branches to obscure the hero's vision if he was following his path. As soon as dark shadow got to him, he activated his fallen angel form and began to fly in random direction tree to tree, hoping to confuse the hero. The tactic worked as he now viewed the hero from above. His gun was in hand and he was looking around for him. He launched Dark Shadow out at the hero, and as he got close, Dark Shadow screeched out, "Got you now!" Quick as a flash, the hero unveiled a new gun from his coat and shot directly at the tree Takoyami was in, causing the tree to fall and forcing Dark Shadow to turn back to catch his partner. He luckily managed to do so, but before they could recover to move again, a gun was shoved in Takoyami's face. "It was worth a shot, even if I didn't know where you were." Your buddy gave himself away by yelling, Zombieman remarked as he holstered his weapon and helped Takoyami up. "He can be a bit eccentric," Takoyami replied. "As I can see, well, now we're just gonna focus on the regular physical exercise routine, alright. Ready?" Zombieman asked and Takoyami nodded. Sense, King's group, Genos group, Saitama. Minta had just entered King's new apartment, still thinking how odd it was that King was living in such places, especially now that he had won that 5 million yen from yesterday. As he approached his room and opened the door, he noticed that King had his disguise on ready to go out into the public. The two looked at each other for a moment and Minta was the first to ask the question. "Where are you headed, Mr. King?" he queried. "I'm headed over to a friend's place to play some games and watch anime," King said simply. "Oh, can I come with you?" Minta asked, unsure if he was included in his plans. King sat and thought for a moment, putting a hand to his chin in a thinking gesture. Then replied, "Sure, why not? It could be fun," King explained. "Awesome. I bet your friends are super cool. Are they strong just like you?" Minta wondered out loud. "Oh yeah, he's really strong. The strongest person I've ever met." Minta skipped with excitement, curious about the individual in question and how he might look. Would he be some muscle-bound hero with tons of scars? A hero with a live figure with a cool costume with cool weapons? As the two made their way into the city this friend was located, however, his thoughts on the individual changed as he surveyed the area. It was a ghost town, nobody was around, and the buildings looked desolate. Maybe the king's friend was a dangerous criminal forced to live outside of society to escape from people, and the reason King didn't just bring him is for him to atone for his sins by fighting as a vigilante. Now his vision of the man was a hardened thug or assassin with sleek hair and lithe frame like Edge shot. His expectations were utterly shattered as King's friend opened the door to reveal a plain bald man in plain white shirt with some kanji on it that he couldn't recognize and black pants. As the two entered, he was further surprised by the two teens that were inside along with the plain-looking hero. "Bakugou? Todoroki? What are you doing here?" Minta exclaimed, rushing up to his classmates. "Stop all that yelling, you extra," Bakugou yelled back, making Minta shrink away from him, not daring to point out his hypocrisy at that moment. "We are waiting for Demon Cyborg to return," Todoroki said calmly next to the grumpy teen. The mention of the name brought a whirl of emotions to the king's face, mostly guilt for leaving him to face that machine and fear if he held any ill will towards him because of it. You know Demon Cyborg?" King managed to stutter out. "Yeah, he just kinda barged in one day and considered me his master all of a sudden," Saitama said casually, earning shocked looks from both King and Minta. Minta looked to Todoroki and Bakugou as if asking for confirmation. Bakugou merely sucked his teeth and looked away while Todoroki shrugged his shoulders. The two haven't seen him in combat and doubted him and Demon Cyborg severely on his rumored strength. Their complete lack of care to do actual hero work doubled down on their doubts. After some time playing video games and then watching an anime that was about a potato hero, Genos finally arrived. He had gone out to retrieve Saitama's costume from the cleaners. "I'm ready," Saitama stated confident. "Ready for what?" King inquired. "This. Wanna join?" Their prize money for the winner, Saitama tried to entice. "No, I don't have a hero costume." The conversation was Bakugou's breaking point. "A fucking costume contest. Aren't you guys heroes? Shouldn't be out fighting monsters?" Bakugou yelled as he stood up, his palms leaking smoke. Master Saitama does not need to muddy himself with such trivial matters unless the threat is high enough. Genos said, dismissing Bakugou immediately. Maybe monster attacks aren't as frequent as you want to believe there. Todoroki attempted to calm him down. Or we never hear shit because we're in this ghost town, Bakugou shot back angrily. Stop yelling in my master's home, Genos said seriously, his palms activating slightly in threat. Oh yeah? Make me scrap heap, Bakugou said, his palm begging to smoke again. Todoroki just looked annoyed and Makita and King were beginning to cower away from the two. Saitama, on the other, had stopped listening to go change into his hero clothes. Upon coming out and seeing the two explosive people about to fight in his living room, he immediately yelled at them. Cut it out. We don't have time for this, Genos. Genos almost immediately stood down, but the teenager was more eager for a fight. And why the hell should I listen to you? Bakugou challenged. Saitama only rolled his eyes and proceeded towards the door before turning his head back to the teen. How about this, a challenge if you win? We go out monster hunting if I win. You join the hero costume contest and give any money you earn to me. Deal? Saitama said, grinning to himself. All right, you're on. Bakugou immediately agreed to the challenge, marching out the door after the bald hero. The rest of the group continued after them. Saitama was stretched for time, so the challenge between the two was just to see who could land a hit on the other first. Gino was the one that did the countdown, and as he said go, the match was already over. Saitama had plucked the kid on forehead and was already moving past him to walk towards the concert, leaving a stunned audience in his wake besides Gino's, who immediately followed his master away. What the hell just happened? Bakugou asked, confused. You lost, and per agreement you have to join the costume contest, so hurry up, Genos yelled back. Bakugou stared in disbelief for a few moments more before hearing a slight chuckle from his side, which snapped his head in the direction of the little grape boy, spooking him and making him run behind King for cover. He was about to say something, but another beckoning yell from Genos stopped him cold. He stuffed his hands in his pockets and began to walk away, mumbling his way down the street, slowly followed by Todoroki as well. Makita went to follow, but when he realized that King didn't move, he stopped and looked at him as he started back towards the apartment. You're not coming, King? Nah, I'm gonna play some more games. Feel free to go with them. Good luck if you decide to enter the contest, King said as he waved goodbye and continued inside. Makita was hesitant but followed the others. He really needed to find a way for King to live a little and accept his fame. The group got to the stadium where the costume contest was going to take place. It was extremely packed, full of people waiting to get in. Saitama and Todoroki waited around for the crew to get their tickets registered. As they came back, Saitama noticed a kid sitting on a bench, almost naked and crying. Are you all right? Where are your clothes? They took them. They teased me at school, and now they stole my clothes, the kid said through tears. Show us where they are? We'll teach them never to steal again, Bakugou said, making his way to the front. That would be an unwise course of action and could potentially escalate their teasing into something more harmful, and if such a case occurred, you won't be there to protect him, Genos said, causing Bakugou to glare in the hero's direction. In any case, we can't just leave him here like this, Todoroki said, igniting his hand slightly just in case the boy was cold, which frightened the boy somewhat before his face morphed into intrigue and then morphing back into his original sad state. There is a junior costume contest going on as well, but now I don't have a costume to wear. The boy was about to sob again before suddenly seeing a fabric covering his legs. This costume is cool, so I'll lend it to you. The kid looked up at the bald man, the sun behind him casting a shadow over his body. Are you sure about that, old dude? The teen said, earning an annoyed smirk from Saitama, only replying, I'm not that old, before the kid went off on his way. But master, how are you supposed to compete without a costume? Genos inquired. No worries, Genos, I came prepared. I wore a costume under my costume, Saitama exclaimed confidently, turning around to unveil his new look. It was his normal boots and gloves, but his shirt was a plain white with a brown mouse creature on the front, but instead of a mouse's face, it was a man's with a buckle across his lower stomach along with his white briefs with a flower pattern print. There are no rules on what makes a hero costume, right, Genos? This will compete well, don't you think? But before Genos could speak, Bakugou barked out in laughter. "There's no way you could win, looking like that," he said between hearty laughs. "I don't know, I think it looks pretty stylish with some modifications if you ask me," Minta said, analyzing Saitama's new fit. "You're only saying that because it somewhat resembles your trash look." He gave his hero suit away. "What's your excuse?" Bakugou snapped back, laughing some more. "In any case, if the judges side with you, then the money will go to Saitama anyways," Genos said, earning a grumbling response from Bakugou. "Well, the contest is about to begin, you all better hurry," Todoroki remarked as the other heroes began making their way inside. The group parted as Genos wished his master luck. As the show began, the announcer MC announced the 3 judges: Cleopatra, Natalie No 9, Torajiro, and after that the MC invited up her first contestant, which was Darkness Blade. He boasted about his armor and weapon, but also contradicted himself by saying he wasn't boasting, which Todoroki found bizarre. The true surprise came with the judges' opinions. However, they were extremely harsh, especially the man in the center, only offering a meager 2 points to the hero, making his grand total a 16 out of 30 points. This continued on for some time before getting down to the last 3 contestant, which happened to be his classmates and Saitama. The first to go up was Bakugou, his explosive costume garnering a positive reaction from the crowd, if their oohs and applauds were anything to go by. "I am the A-class hero, Great Explosion Murder God Dynamite, and the winner of this stupid contest," Bakugou announced boldly, raising both of his hands and shooting out an explosion from both of them, drawing gasps of surprise from the people in the room, making the room deadly quiet as the judges began their evaluation. The one in the center was the first to begin like always. "You're a curious case. You emit an ego that doesn't entirely match up with your skill, leaving yourself in limbo when things don't go as you plan. You have skill but too much self-confidence in your skills, leading you to always chase behind it," Taro said, giving his judgment. "You know how to sell a theme well and stick to it. Your hair, personality, and style tells someone all they need to know about you," Natalie 9 commented. "Your face also isn't bad, although it would be better if it wasn't in a constant state of anger," Cleopatra said. The judges all gave their marks, and the audience was stunned by the result. The middle judge afforded the man his highest score, yet a 7, combined with another 7 he earned from Cleopatra, and the 10 he earned from Natalie. He received a total of 24 points out 30. Which was the highest in the contest so far. Bakugou was conflicted with his emotions on the event, not only from what that judge said, but also because if he did win, the money would just go to that bald guy. He returned back in line with another round of applause by the audience as he walked back. "That's the best score of the day. Can our next 2 contestants top that? Let's find out," MC said as she theoretically held out her hand for the next contestant, which was Minta. He marched out proudly, stating his class and rank before taking off one of his pop-off balls and placing it on the ground to spring into the air and forward on the stage. The judges seemed to be unimpressed. The guy went first. "You are a desperate being that doesn't realize that the same drive to have is the same thing driving people away from you," Taro said. "You have a color scheme that clashes slightly, and without a close inspection on the stem on your head people wouldn't know what your theme was," Natalie said. "Your colors clash, but not to an obnoxious extent, but I don't really like grapes very much," Cleopatra said. The judges gave their score perfect 5s across the board, making him get a 15 out of 30 points, nearly bringing the boy to tears as he picked up his ball and started running back towards the lineup. The next up was Saitama, and after a rather humorous event, even to Todoroki at Saitama's attempt at a special move, the center judge really let the bald hero have it, throwing insults after insult at his costume and his character. But before he could finally give the hero a final score, the entire arena started to rumble violently, almost knocking the announcer off her feet. The next thing they heard was an alarm announcer. "Emergency alert! Emergency alert! A monster has appeared in City Z. Threat level, demon. It came from the sewers. It is rampaging in District 7. The citizens around them started to murmurs about that being close to this location, putting Todoroki on edge. He attempted to move towards the center of the arena before something bursted through the wall of the arena. Before the smoke cleared, the creature introduced itself. "I was a pet turtle, but my owner flushed me down the toilet. There I bathed in sewage until I mutated into this." As the smoke cleared, true to the creature's word, It was a massive turtle, but had 3 heads. The other heroes immediately sprang into action trying to attack the monster, the first being the first contestant Darkness Blade, who attempted to slice the center head with his sword, but the strike didn't faze the monster in the slightest, and it batted the hero away along with the others that attempt to fight it. Bakugou was in the mix as well. He waited for all the small heroes to be out of the way before charging towards the monster. Finally, this is what I'm talking about. He rushed at the monster before rising above it using his app autocannon on the creature, creating a large cloud of smoke. He was shocked when the creature stood up on its 2 legs, grabbing him by the leg and throwing him towards the stage, flying past the critic and hitting the stage. The monster laughed. "Gah ha ha ha, I'll drown you in sewage." The monster rolled into a ball before charging forth towards Taro, and Saitama sprung into action, hoping to intercept the creature, but suddenly the ball was instantly frozen, and nearly the entire hole that the monster came in from was covered in ice. The whole audience froze from their panic and turned to look where the ice came from, following the line of ice to its origin being a teen in a blue uniform, which surprised everyone. Everyone started to surround Todoroki, asking if he was a hero and thanking him for saving their lives. The crowd parted for the judges. "I assume you're a hero as well," Taro said. Todoroki nodded. "My name is Show Frozen Phoenix. Class," he corrected himself. Taro looked at him for a moment, analyzing his features, his scar, his outfit. "You're a good person, if not a tad dull, which comes through from your costume. No flair or exaggeration, purely functional, but still aesthetically pleasing," the critique said, examining. "Your scar gives your face character, along with your heteromorphic eyes, which really highlight your oddly colored hair even more," Cleopatra said. "I think you're absolutely perfect. In fact, would you mind if I get you for some promotional opportunities?" Natalie said. "Ugh, what?" Todoroki was utterly confused about what was happening right then. Suddenly all the judges gave a score, and to his surprise he got 2 8s and a 10, giving him a score of 28, the highest in the contest. "But I wasn't a part of the contest," Todoroki stated, not wanting to intervene, especially given his classmate's temper. Speaking of which, he glanced over to see if he was okay. The monster threw him pretty hard, only to be surprised by seeing Midoriya conversing with him instead. "Oh please, child. I'm sure nobody here would speak out against our savior winning the award," Taro said to a whoop of support from the crowd. Meanwhile, Midoriya and Bang had just entered the scene and entered from the hole the monster had made. He saw that the monster was completely frozen solid, so that could only mean one thing: he looked, and he saw Todoroki surrounded by people praising him, which he smiled at, but instantly turned to a frown when he saw Bakugou getting up from what appeared to be a crash from the stage. "Kekken?" Midoriya reacted instantly, racing towards his childhood friend. He reached a hand out to help him up, but he slapped it away just like he's done before. "What the hell are you doing here, Midoriya?" he said menacingly as he got up, testing his injury to see if everything was okay. "Me and Bang usually go on patrols around the city, and when we heard of a demon assault in this district came straight away, but it seems like you guys took care." His friend's expression morphed into a serious scowl, but it wasn't directed towards him or anyone in particular given the angle of his head. "He took care of it all right." Bakugou sneered, giving a jerking motion to where he assumed Todoroki was inside the crowd. "Midoriya, you should have seen that thing." It shrugged off Bakugou attacks like it was nothing. Maita came up squeaking beside the two, only to receive a death glare from Bakugou, which made him run and join the group celebrating Todoroki's victory. "Kakken," Midoriya said with some worry in his tone. He knew that his friend had a big inferiority complex that he was still fighting against, so any words he would say to try and console him was going to be considered as pity, so he decided to remain quiet. As his friend marched past him to join the group of people, the crowd seemingly raised in volume, and the judges announced that the winner of the costume contest was Todoroki. Meanwhile, Genos was approaching the monster, sensing that it was still alive, readying to exterminate it with his incinerators, but was stopped by Bang. After a lengthy discussion about not killing the creature, he decided to leave the monster in Bang's hand as he waited for the association to pick it up. The rest of the convention carried on like normal, other than esteeming Bakugou in second place instead of the first he rightfully would have received if the dumb turtle didn't interfere, but he didn't care much, like the money was going to be his anyways. Todoroki won the main prize pool of 2 million yen, while Todoroki won the second prize pool of 1 million yen, in which after leaving the event he gave straight to Saitama, but out of whatever leap in logic the bald hero let him keep the money, stating that he should have it as long as he promises not to blow things up around his home. Bakugou agreed, and the group continued walking. After the sun was setting, they ran into the kid again that had Saitama's original costume. As the hero was conversing with a child, Bakugou approached Genos, who appeared to be in deep thought, nuding him slightly before asking a question. "Your creator is some super genius, right? Dr. Kusino is possibly the world's greatest scientist," Genos said assertively. "Could he potentially design me some better gauntlets?" Bakugou queried. His voice unusually low. Genos noted from the time he spent with the boy so far. "Obviously, but the question is why would he?" "Because I need to get stronger," Bakugou admitted, surprising Genos somewhat. "So you see the limits of your strength and hope to surpass it using technology?" The question earning a scowl from the teen. "No, I don't want to rely on strength that's not my own. I just want him to improve on the design and make them more efficient if he can." "And what would I get out of this request? You have been nothing short of aggravating every one time I encounter you." "Look, I'm sorry, okay, is that what you want to hear?" Bakugou said in an even lower voice, looking down at his hands. "But I need to—" He was cut off as a notebook was thrusted into his face. He took it and the pencil Genos was writing with before Genos started to speak again. "Write the details of the design and ability of your power in this book. I shall make sure the doctor sees them, but know this, I do not do this for you. The doctor has been experimenting with your DNA, and his results on implementing it to make machines based off it was not returning anything useful, but with the information you provide that could change matters. Just a forewarning of what this data could be used for besides upgrading your own equipment," Genos said with sincerity. Bakugou thought for a moment, thinking of the pros and cons of such experiments happening, but ultimately decided to go with it. He wanted. No needed to become stronger, and this was just the first step into doing just that. He'll take advantage of his time here to improve as much as possible, so when he returns home, OFA and FO won't be the be-all and all anymore. Neither that half and half bastard either. So with a wordless answer, Bakugou started to write in the journal all he knew about his quirk and his support items. The group finally made it back to Saitama's apartment to awaiting King. Saitama, having mostly binged the baked potato manga King had given him before he left, and immediately went to address the man as he walked in. "Dude, baked potato man manga is so dumb, he flies by farting." "Farting," he said, exemplifying the ridiculousness of the power. "You should totally lend me the next volume," he said excitedly. He didn't seem busy at all, King thought to himself. "Sure thing, man. How did the contest go?" Todoroki came in first place, followed by Bakugou. Minta said the boy in question was only scribbling in a notebook, uncaring about the conversation. "I came in 10th, but your friend here came in dead last with only 8 points, Minta said with a chuckle, pointing a thumb at Saitama. "Sensei only came in last because he gave his hero costume away to someone in need. He was teaching us the lesson of how appearance doesn't matter if you are highly skilled." Genos immediately came to his master's defense. "That's really selfless of you, Saitama, as I would expect from you, really. Speaking of which, you want to go out. My treat, I just won this tournament the other day, and I want to repay you for what you did for me as well," King said with sincerity. "Oh, that sounds nice. Actually, wait, did you say you won a tournament? Was that by chance the Wild Animals tournament?" Saitama questioned. "Yeah, that was the one," King said casually, only earning a dejected sigh from Saitama. "Did you guys try it out as well?" Minta said to Todoroki and Bakugou, who still continued to write in the book, leaving only Todoroki to answer. "Yes, me and Bakugou entered into the contest, however I was eliminated in the first round. Bakugou was eliminated sometime after," Todoroki commented. "Same with me. I made it pretty far after I switched up to the VR controls and used my quirk to help me. I was the rat character. I made it pretty far but lost to that dragon guy," Minta replied, but Todoroki's reply was shortly cut off by a seething sound coming from Bakugou, who looked at the grape kid with seething anger, the pencil in his hand being squeezed to the point it snapped in half. "So you did cheat, you little shit. Come on, fight me right here, right now. No timer's gonna save you this time," Bakugou yelled. making Maita flinch away and look to Todoroki for some kind of explanation. Bakugou was the lion character. You were the one that took him out of the tournament, he said simply. You grape trash, Bakugou went and took a step towards the small child who immediately retreated back towards the front door. Oh boy, doesn't a nice dinner sound nice? Right guys, let's go, he yelled as he ran out the door with Bakugou racing behind him screaming at the small child to fight him. Are you sure about this? Bang, Chiranko, Midoriya, Ojiro. Ojiro and Chiranko were alone once again as Bang and Midoriya left on their journey around the city, and as the other two fell into step into their normal routine, first finishing their run around and some light sparring and practicing forms and stances of the rock-smashing fist. Ojiro noted how Chiranko had gotten more proactive in his training, not shying away when Bang wasn't around. The consequences of this was his ego gotten worse than before. He would often bring up the one time he traveled with Darkshine and company against those night creatures and that dragon. Ojiro would make it a point not to mention how he initially reacted to the incident and let Ojiro bask in his self-glory. He seemed like more of a person that could only get things done when his attitude called for it, and he made use of that cocky attitude now. As they just got done practicing their forms before starting towards opposite ends of the arena. The two turned to each other and went into a bow before getting into their respective distances, both looking identical to the other, and charged forth. The two met in the center of the arena. Ojiro struck out first with an open palm aimed at Chiranko's chest. The blow was averted however by Chiranko, who tried to follow up the aversion with a punch of his own directed at Ojiro's face. He managed to duck the blow, but was suddenly yanked forward. Chiranko, after diverting the palm strike, he wrapped his hand around Ojiro's wrist. He pulled the unaware teen down and tried to throw a knee directly into the teen's gut. Ojiro thought quickly however, spinning in the direction where his hand was trapped, avoiding the knee strike and freeing his wrist in the process. He used the momentum from the spin to perform a roundhouse kick. Chiranko decided better than to block the blow, but instead used his ducked under the blow, attempting to sweep his one leg from under him. He succeeded in removing the leg from play. But Ojiro shot his hand out, catching himself before he could fall. Noticing the sweeping leg reversing and coming back again, he pushed down and pushed up with all his strength to flip him over back on his feet. As he did so, he performed an axe kick on the downed form of Chiranko. Given his position, he couldn't dodge in time. Instead, he braced himself, raising both his hands in a cross guard to block the kick, which he did successfully before pushing up back, standing again. Throwing off the kick on his head before responding with a roundhouse kick of his own, which Ojiro blocked, catching the kick in his hand and throwing the fellow student clear and onto his back before he could recover. A fist was in his face in an obvious gesture of checkmate. Chiranko let out a sigh as Ojiro's expression softened into a smile as his fist became a hand, which Chiranko took. Man, you didn't even need to use your tail. Chiranko sulked. Don't be like that, man. You've gotten much better than when I first got here. Ojiro tried to reassure him. His attention was suddenly drawn to a message on his phone. Off to the side, he saw was pictures of Midoriya and, to his surprise, Todoroki in front of a large ice sculpture, but upon further inspection he saw something inside the ice. It was a giant turtle creature with 3 heads. He let out a low whistle, which drew the attention of Chiranko, who looked also at the image. Dang, who managed to do that? Chiranko asked. More than likely he did. His name's Todoroki. He has the power of ice and fire. He's really strong, Ojiro said, pointing to the red and white-haired person on the screen. They really are experiencing a lot out there. I couldn't imagine coming face to face with that thing, Chiranko mentioned, shivering at the thought. We should ask to go out there sometime. I'm sure the two of us could help people. It doesn't even have to be about fighting monsters, just helping out in our own way. Ojiro made sure to mention that last part to not strike fear in his fellow disciple's mind. His mind, however, was already beginning to wonder about saving hot girls from some petty thieves and being rewarded by their numbers or kisses. Yeah, that sounds great, Chiranko said with a glazed look in his eyes, earning a roll of the eyes from Ojiro. It seems like due to the constant monster activity going on, they want us to just continue on with the lessons ourselves, and they'll catch up when they can, Ojiro said as he read Midoriya's text. In that case, best 2 out of 3. If I win, we chill out for the rest of the day. Chiranko snapped from his daze at that sound. Sure, you're on, Ojiro replied before backing up and getting into a stance again. He said that they will continue on without us then, Midoriya told Bang. Well, I hope that remains true. Chironko wasn't the most studious of my pupils, Bang replied. It should be fine since Ojiro is there. He's very reliable and honor-bound to complete a task designated to him, Midoriya replied. I can tell, he is very disciplined. With any luck, some of that discipline will rub off on Chironko, Bang said with a small chuckle. Todoroki began to walk back over towards the two as the costume competition came to a close. Congratulations on your win, Todoroki, Midoriya beamed with a smile. It was an unwarranted one, I'll give it that. I came over to talk to you all about the creature. Are you sure you guys will be alright? Todoroki remarked, jerking a thumb towards the frozen monster. Don't worry about us, young man. Your friend here is plenty strong to take care of things if anything goes wrong, Bang remarked, earning a questioning gaze from Todoroki, who looked back at Midoriya. Oh, let me introduce you to Mr. Bang. He is teaching me and Ojiro about his martial arts. He's an S-class hero number 3. He's crazy strong as well, Midoriya said. Bang held out a hand for Todoroki to shake, which the boy did. It's nice to meet you, Mr. Bang, Todoroki said. No need for such formalities, Bang is just fine. You should meet Keiken while he's here. Keiken, come over and meet my teacher, Bang. Midoriya began trying to flag down his childhood friend, only receiving a harsh glare in their direction before not following. Don't mind him, he's just a little upset that he lost the contest to Todoroki, a voice said next to them. Looking down, Bang saw a small purple boy there. Hello, and you may be? He questioned, holding out his hand. I'm Minta, I'm friends with them as well and I'm training under. Do you know anything about him, Bang? Minta questioned as he shook the old man's hand, who then rubbed his chin in thought. I haven't had too many run-ins with the man himself. I only saw him in person recently. First before the attack on the association and again when we were choosing who from a list of candidates to choose from. Ooh, did he elaborate why he chose me? Minta was extra curious about what the strongest man in the world saw in him. Sorry, but no, he only chose you and didn't elaborate any further, Bang said with a slight frown. I actually wanted to teach all of you, but they said that most of you wouldn't benefit from martial arts, and judging from this I could see why, Bang said, knocking on the ice that contained the monster. Indeed, my main focus of my training was to gain control of my fire and ice sides, Todoroki mentioned. And what of you, small one? What power do you have? Bang questioned Mintia. It's dealing with the balls on my head. I can remove them and they can stick to objects, or I can use them to bounce off of, Minta said, demonstrating his ability. Well, that is something, Bang commented. Yeah, I know it may not be as amazing as these two, Minta said dejectedly. Oh no, I mean no offense. A power is only as good as the user's creativity and practice. While you may lack the raw powers of your two friends here, your ability came to make up for it in other ways, such as versatility. King is known as the strongest man, and if he sees something in you, then you must have great potential just beneath the surface. You just need to find it, Bang preached, earning a glowing smile from Minta. Yeah, you're right, I'll keep trying, and with by my side I'll get better in no time, Minta said confidently. The four of them began to talk some more before Todoroki and Minta were called over by Genos that they were leaving. The two both said their goodbyes as they left, leaving Midoriya and Bang sitting there with the monster encased in ice. Unlike previously where there would be a small bus that would take the monster away by the Monster Association, this time there were just 4 semi-large drones that came by and attached 4 cords onto the ice and began to lift it up and away towards who knows where. Do you know where they take the monster they capture? Midoriya asked Bang. I do not, Bang said as he watched the big ice block get carried away. Midoriya danger sense kicked in again, along with another alarm of a tiger-level threat in District 4, and the two were off again blazing through the streets. Given the bloodlust he was feeling, he didn't even need Bang direction to go to the designated area. He could just follow along until he finally got to the disaster zone. They came upon a scene in the middle of a shopping mall. The monster was clearly inside the place as civilians quickly ran out of the mall in droves. Midoriya floated over the crowds of masses using his black whip to make his way inside towards the monster. He eventually managed to find it and was surprised to see a large snowman-type monster, but instead of being made of snow, the creature seemed to be made of ice cream instead. It was making a slow approach towards a small child that was crying in the creature's path. Midoriya bounced off the ceiling of the mall, his incredible speed taking him in front of the child and unleashing a Air Force Delaware smash that should have blew the monster away into the wall, but instead it stayed suspended in the air attached to something that went into the ground. The bloodlust drew closer and closer, but upon further expectation, it wasn't coming from the ice cream man at all but something under it. He quickly took the kid, getting her out of danger before returning and finding that the creature was already killed by Bang. He had yanked the creature from below the ground using the ice cream man, which he imagined acted like an angel fish that would lure in unsuspecting victims for it to swallow whole. The creature itself was an abomination of tree, fish, and ice, having the sharp serrated teeth, a mouth structure of said angel fish, but was connected towards the ground with roots like a tree which were currently cut out. Its tongue was shaped like an ice cream snowman. I didn't mean to kill the creature, but it seems that removing it from the roots did so, Bang said sourly. It's fine, but I'm more curious about what this thing is. What could have evolved into that? Midoriya wondered aloud. Bang only shrugged his shoulders in response. Before he could ponder even more about it, he felt another pang of pain from his danger sense flaring up. He quickly told Bang, and the two began to race forward towards the next danger. This one was already taken care of, however, by another hero by the time they got to the scene. The hero was actually the one they saw previously at the concert. He had a weird contraption attached to his nose, and judging from the smoke that protruded from it, he fires things out from it. The creature was a humanoid rat creature, but it was already unconscious. Bang decided that was enough for today, and the two returned to the dojo to find both Ojiro and Charanko, both doing deep breathing exercises in a meditative stance. Trust is hard to build. Child Emperor, Metal Bat, Koda, Mina, Gyro. Woohoo, it's finally time, Mina said as she spun around as she walked forward through the halls of the Hero Association. You do know that even if he talks to them, there's no guarantee that they will suddenly become friendly, right? Gyro remarked. Well, at least we can find out why they're so aggressive, right? Mina said, directing her attention towards Koda, who nodded meekly. We can if they're willing to talk, that is, Koda reminded her. Can't you just order them to? Gyro asked curiously. Koda shook his head and looked down at his feet. No, they aren't animals anymore, they're something more once they grow through monsterization. I can't command them to do anything, but even if I could, that wouldn't help them trust us any more than they do now and could have the opposite reaction, Koda said with severity in his voice. Wow, Koda, I have never seen you talk like that before. I guess that should be expected since we're talking about animals. Mina's teased, making Koda begin to mumble incoherently somewhat while twisting his fingers around each other in nerves. Don't mind her, Koda, she just wants to pet the ravenous bunnies, Gyro said. The group of three finally made it towards the limbos which would drop them off at the Child Emperor's lab. But before they got inside, they were taken off guard by a young rough voice. About time when you show up, I swear you're slow everywhere you go, Bad exclaimed while waiting there with his signature metal bat. Bad, what are you doing here? Koda asked, mumbling his words. Well, obviously I'm here to provide the muscle. You said you're gonna try and talk to monsters, so when this inevitably goes wrong, I'll be there to whack 'em, he said, doing a mock swing with his bat before holstering it. We could handle it on our own. We did catch them in the first place after all, Gyro commented. And you didn't finish the job, so I'll make sure that doesn't happen again, Bad said as he got into the limo. The three teens looked at each other before getting into the limo. The drive over to Child Emperor Lab was not eventful, mostly just Mina trying to strike up conversation with Bad over some topic with some minor input from Gyro every now and then. They soon arrived at the location and the group got out of the car. Metal Bat let out a whistle as he gazed upon the huge structure. Despite his age, the kid's a genius, I'll give him that. Wow, Koda remarked. Oh, Koda, while you're here you should ask Child Emperor for some upgrades to your suit, Gyro remarked. Yeah, maybe some sound amplifiers for your quirk, Mina added. TCH, all that tech and junk will fail you sooner or later, and then what? You should rely on yourself and your fighting spirit, Bad remarked as the group made their way inside. Gyro only snickered slightly and elbow bumped Mina before whispering to her. Substitute fighting spirit for manly, and it's like Kirishima right here with us. Gyro joked, earning a small chuckle from her friend. Kinda Kirishima's a lot nicer and charismatic, Mina mentioned. Oh, and by charismatic do you mean charming? Gyro teased, earning and questioning looks from Mina. I have no idea what you're implying, but no, charismatic. He's a nice, caring, and sweet guy. I knew you had a crush on him. Gyro teased. I don't honest. He's more like a really good friend, Mina pointed out. That's how they all turned out, Gyro said simply as they continued forwards. The group finally got inside the lab and was immediately approached by Child Emperor using his spider legs. He showed surprise upon seeing Metal Bat here as well. Metal Bat, you're here? Yeah, got a problem with that. No, just try not to break anything, will ya? He said with a sigh before carrying on to the next new face. Hey, I'm not a kid. As long as nothing bothers me, I won't just smash it. Simple as that. Bad said with a huff of annoyance. And you must be Koda, correct? I'm looking forward to seeing your power in action. I'm curious about what makes these monsters tick, Child Emperor said, holding out his hand for the young teen to shake, which he did, shaking the young boy's hand while returning the greeting. The boy had brought the group to an enclosure. It was a large exhibit that was completely dark, but as the group began to approach it, quickly depolarized, allowing them to look inside. All 8 creatures were inside unconscious. I had to keep them sedated so that they could calm down. It's hard to work with these things constantly looking for a way out of their cage, the Child Emperor said as he gestured to the bunnies in the container. Koda looked at the unconscious creatures and Mina was completely correct in her description. They were essentially giant bunnies the size of a mastiff or big dog breed, and from what little he could see of their teeth, they were razor sharp, and he could see foam coming off their mouths a bit. The foam that they secrete from their mouths is a mild paralysis. If a regular human gets bit, he would probably struggle to move for 5 minutes. Child Emperor continued as the mist that was in the cage began to disperse. The bunnies started to rise from their slumber, shaking their bodies off before noticing the audience they had in front of them. Immediately 2 charged forth, jumping to attack, but crashed into the glass in front of them. They quickly began to growl and hiss instead. Cursed humans with their cages and leashes, I swear to kill the small one for what he did to Kayla and John. Calm yourselves, wait for your opportunity to strike. What are they saying? Child Emperor and Mina asked almost simultaneously, although one with more giddy in her voice. They said that you killed 2 of them, and they want revenge for that, Koda said, looking down at Child Emperor disapprovingly. That I did. Ask them how they turned into monsters, he said nonchalantly. Koda shot a downcasted look, but did as instructed. How did you become like this? Koda used his voice, making the bunnies thump their hind legs in agitation and confusion. Voice, where is it coming from? The bunnies looked around confused. It's me, I can understand and talk to you all, Koda continued, pointing to himself through the glass. Human can speak, understand us. Free us humans and your death shall be quick. One bunny took a step forward in front of the others, making Koda cringe backwards a bit. Why do you hate humans so much? Koda quickly asked. Human owner forced us to go through trials, shows, never good enough, always failed, always punished. We decide for ourselves what is enough. Koda frowned at the statement. He hated abusive owners. He relayed the information to Child Emperor, who didn't seem surprised. What? You mean pets can turn into monsters just from being abused? Shouldn't that make being a pet owner extremely unsafe for the unprepared? Mina said, bewildered by that fact. We do. It's one of the few things the association and police can agree on. To own a pet is likened to owning a firearm. Wealthy people have connections, however, and they can get what they want on a whim if need be. Child Emperor replied. Dang, that's messed up, Gyro commented. What do you want from us, human? We will not be put on show again. We will kill all who try to make us, the lead bunny hissed out. They're asking what we want to do with them, Koda translated. Well, I assume they don't want to be pets anymore, Mina said. Koda immediately shook his head at the proposal. Then I don't know. We could try to find a spot for them to live, but they have to promise to not attack humans again, Child Emperor mentioned. Why bother? I say we finish them here and now, Bad said, putting his hand to the glass. The bunnies almost immediately reacted, huddling up together and foaming even stronger in the mouth. Monster, fear, the bunnies chanted. Koda immediately turned to Bad. No, if they agree to leave peacefully, then they should be able to just live out in the woods like any other creature. Koda said with conviction. Bad merely sucked his teeth and removed his hand from the glass, the bunnies noticeably relaxing as the aura he presented was gone. What if we can take you all away from here? Would you just leave? If you promise not to attack humans again, we can find you all a place to be safe. How can we trust you, human? Another bunny steps away from the pack. Because you are still here. My friends and I are different from the other hero that would have just killed you, Koda tried to reason. Pointing towards Mina and Gyro, the bunnies murmured to themselves a bit lowly. They seemed to be arguing if he was just blowing shit or really offering the carrot. The group remembered how the child was the one that killed their brother and sister, while the two girls mainly just restrained them so he could be telling the truth, but that was a risky gambit to take. Where is this land you will take us? For that Koda was speechless. He turned to ask Child Emperor, but he had no idea either and needed to check for available areas. We don't know yet, but we'll look. Just be patient in the meantime, okay? Koda asked hopefully that they would understand. They more or less did. They never replied but settled themselves in the cage environment they were in. The screen polarized again, showing black again. Well, at least we made progress, Gyro mentioned. Sucks I can't pet one of them, though they just look so fluffy, Mina whined. Yeah, and they can rip your throat out, Metal Bat muttered, but before Mina responded another monster alarm rang through the lab. It was a threat-level demon. Phew, finally something I can go smash. You guys stay here and play Animal Whisper, I got this, he said, marching away with his metal bat in his hands. Well, in the meanwhile, do you mind if I can get more samples of your voice? Child Emperor asked Koda. Sure, why? From what I can tell, your voice seems to have a debilitating effect on the monster that hears it. Maybe I could replicate that pitch and frequency to make something that can stun them. Well, in return, can I get a better amplifier for my costume as well? Something to boost my voice so it can be heard from farther away without modulation, Koda asked in return. Child Emperor nodded, and the two went off towards the labs to experiment, followed closely behind by Gyro and Mina, who in the meantime got more practice in using their new upgraded items on bots. Out and about, Stinger, Yayurazu, Kaminari. Just like the previous days, Momo and Kaminari both met with DriveKnight in his storage room. Kaminari had improved his dual processing to reach his original limit of 300 million volts, while Yayurazu was still ongoing with her bow staff spear training, occasionally being brought into the city with Stinger to continue to learn from an experienced fighter. While the two were in their respective areas, Stinger had made another appearance, halting the sparring that Momo and DriveKnight was in the middle of. I'll be taking the princess out for a ride. Don't worry, she'll be back before midnight, Stinger joked, earning a slight blush from Momo and only an unamused glare from DriveKnight. As the two exited their training arena, they three were approached by Kaminari as well. Can I go with them, please? The teen said, placing his hands together in a begging motion, rocking them back and forth. Why? You won't really learn anything from participating with them, DriveKnight said. Oh, come on, I'm so bored here. I want to go out and see the world, Kaminari complained. If I may interject, while training one's quirk is essential, shouldn't he see the fruits of his labor in combat so that he could be more motivated to try harder in his efforts? Yayurazu cut in. DriveKnight turned towards her as if processing her argument and then relented and looked towards Stinger for confirmation, but soon realized the man wasn't really paying attention to the conversation at hand. And what about you? What are your thoughts on this, Stinger? Hearing his name must have snapped him back into the moment as he briefly reorganized himself before answering. Yeah, sure, whatever, the more the merrier, I always say, Stinger said, leaning on his spear somewhat. As long as he doesn't slow me down, he said cheekily. In that case, I see no reason why you can't join them. DriveKnight relented. All right, awesome. Thanks, Momo, Kaminari said, giving the girl a thumbs up. All right, let's get this show on the road, Stinger said, beginning to walk out of the room, quickly followed by the two teens. As they were walking out of the building, Stinger decided to address the extra he had on his team for the day. So kid, what's your hero name and gimmick? Stinger asked. My hero's name's Chargebolt, and if by gimmick you mean power, then it's the ability to channel electricity through my body, Kaminari said confidently, receiving a whistle from Stinger in return. Sounds cool. Can you do things like summon storms or shoot out lightning from your eyes? Stinger said, starting to walk backwards, absent-mindedly twirling his spear around his body. Kaminari let out a small chuckle before answering. Nah man, nothing like that. I can expel and absorb electricity through my body, but indiscriminately I don't have much control over it or who it affects, so once we get into a fight try to keep your distance, Kaminari said, rubbing the back of his head, drawing attention to the device on his arm. What's that on your arm? Stinger said, pointing to the metal device. Oh it's the way I get over my previous deficits. I can shoot out these discs from here, and it allows me to more directly channel my electricity towards a target, Kaminari said while trying to flip his pointer in the air but missing the catch, making Momo laugh at his mad scramble to pick the thing back up. Where are we going today, Stinger? Momo asked. We are going to V City. Nothing special going on, but just take a tour of the town. Kill a couple of monsters that may pop up here or there. You know the usual, Stinger said, spinning his spear again before turning back around and walking with his spear in the crook of the back of his neck. Stinger, please, I've asked you to at least spare the ones you can safely capture. Taking a human life or otherwise shouldn't be done in excess. What of the families of people that turned into monsters? Momo nagged the pro hero, who just waved her off. Yeah, I know. I'm just saying it's so much easier to get the job done and over with instead of waiting for that damn bus everywhere. Kaminari looked at his friends, perplexed by her statement. Wait, humans can become monsters here? Momo nodded her head. Apparently, the association is still trying to figure out the how or why, but if the person obsesses, hates, or even is discouraged enough, it can cause a monster-type transformation and a complete change in attitude and state of mind. Which is why I say killing them is much better. It's essentially a different person entirely. Don't give people false hope of their loved ones coming back. Stinger said his voice was getting progressively lower until he whispered his last sentence. That's why we came up with our deal, right? I'll stick by it, so you better make sure you get stronger to handle it. Stinger said his voice suddenly went loud again as he flashed a smile back at the girl. Deal? Kaminari also looked at his friends with confusion. Yes, me and Stinger, tired of arguing about this topic, decided that if I could subdue the monster myself, all well and fine, we could capture it. But if I cannot, then he can kill it, if possible. Well, that should be simpler than with me here, Kaminari said, sticking a thumb to his chest while inflating it somewhat to look bigger. I wouldn't be so sure about that. Monsters are getting tougher around, not many wolf levels running around anymore, and if it's a demon level monster, then just forget about it, Stinger said. Wolves are the danger level we're most adequate to deal with at our current level. They are the weakest danger level. Sometimes, depending on the ability or matchup, we could take on tiger-level threats, as each monster is an individual, and the threat levels are mostly categorical as it seems, Momo said, answering Kaminari's questioning gaze. Ah, I think I get it, Kaminari said. The group finally made it to the car that would take them to V City. The drive was anticlimactic, mostly just them talking about landmarks and stadiums they passed on their way towards the designated city. As they got to the city, they were immediately greeted with the sound of alarms. 3 monsters were spotted around the city, each with the threat level of tiger. Thinking quickly, the Stinger decided to split the in two. He would go by himself, while the 2 teens would travel together to attack another. When queried about the third, he assured them that there are other heroes that should be able to take care of it, but if not, they could just reconvene there. So they set out to follow the plan. Momo and Kaminari made it to the scene only to find a giant flock of crows. They had glowing red eyes, and their bodies were somewhat larger than normal, but their wings were incredibly sharp. He saw one of them being capable of cutting straight through a lamp pole, which began falling towards a civilian that had tripped and fell, but before either teen could reach the fallen victim, she was saved by someone. His superhero suit consists of red gloves and helmet, a black eye mask, and an orange suit with a yellow cape. He completely managed to grab the women and escape the falling pole and appeared in front of the 2, setting the woman down and letting her run away. He held a donut in his hands that he just finished taking a bite of before addressing them. I assume you guys are heroes, right? If you don't have any wide-range attacks, I suggest getting out of here. They gotta be around 100 of them, and the more you take down the angrier they get. Food Battler wheezed out. Are there any more civilians in the area? Momo questioned, earning a shake of the head from Food Battler. Good, you said they get aggressive if you attack some of them, right? Creati, do you mind? Kaminari mentioned, picking up on what Kaminari wanted to do. She created one of her cement guns and began shooting into the horde of birds, trapping a couple of them and sending them crashing down towards the ground. The flock seemed to take notice and charged forth, almost scarring Food Battler into retreat if he wasn't held in place by Momo, who summoned a giant shock-resistant cover and signaled to Kaminari that she was ready. The murder of crows was closing in quickly and Kaminari began charging his quirk, feeling the electricity start to course through his body and exit at an accelerated rate. Indiscriminate shock, 10 million volts, Kaminari screamed as a burst of electricity began to surge outwards all around him, hitting and chaining through the bird flock and knocking all of them unconscious. Food Battler came from out under the cover and looked at the carnage in front of him. Whoa, was the only thing he managed to get out. Yeah, I'm totally awesome, Kaminari said briefly, flashing his electricity. Well, that threat is neutralized. We should move on to the next. Would you mind calling the association to pick this up, mister? Momo asked after fixing her costume from creating the large tarp. You can just call me Food Battler or Futoshi, and sure, I'll call them up, and don't worry, I'll mention you guys to give you credit, he said. Thanks, Momo said before quickly leaving towards the next disaster area where the monster was located. They arrived just in time to see Stinger standing off to the side, as two heroes fought on against a creature that seemed to be an ogre. The hero that were fighting, it was a man with a bow and arrow and a dark-skinned man with a small knife. The ogre had multiple arrows in its body and was moving clumsy, and then the knife wielder struck out quickly, cutting the creature multiple times before retreating back to his original position. The monster began to froth at the mouth and gurgle as it went down. Why didn't you help them? Momo asked. They didn't want me to. It would split the reward and notoriety, Stinger said, chilling on a car watching over the fight. Notoriety? Reward, Kaminari mentioned. You guys sure don't know anything about the profession you're trying to be a part of, do you? Heroes fight monsters to gain notoriety and money. The higher the monster threat you defeat with the fewer people, the more your standing in the association increases, especially if you have a low rank, he said as he began to walk away. So there is a competitiveness amongst heroes to compete amongst each other? Shouldn't they be working together instead? Momo questioned. It happens occasionally. We don't really hate each other, but we don't want to get in the way of each other's advancement. And the fastest way to advance is by doing things yourself, Kaminari commented. You're starting to get it. Now, while we wait for the next one to spring up, Creationist, how about a spar match? Stinger said. Really? Now? Momo said in disbelief. Yeah, why not? No time but the present, Stinger said with a cocky grin. Sure, I guess, Momo answered. She still needed to practice after all. Well, I'll be just recording you getting your butt whooped. Don't mind me, Kamner said, taking out his phone, receiving an annoyed glance from Momo. What? You could go over the video and find out what you did wrong, he replied with a smirk on his face, only receiving a roll of the eyes in return, and with that done, the two began to fight. Turning up the G's, Darkshine, Kirishima, Sato. Sato and Kirishima were both chatting amongst themselves as they were walking towards the gym about various topics before entering and being greeted by their usual teacher Darkshine, already preparing by doing some basic physical exercises like push-ups. He stopped to greet the two boys, and with the pleasantries out of the way, the two teens got to work on weight-lifting machines and other exercises. The two boys had grown into a sort of competition in their time training, each trying to one-up the other or racing on who could perform a set of reps faster. The entire time, however, Kirishima was kind of distracted, often taking glances over at the gravity machine in the room. You're really curious about, aren't you? Sato said, taking a break from the machine he was working on to look over at the redhead. You aren't? It's like a fantasy come true, Kirishima said, looking over at the machine some more. Well, why not just ask to try it out? It's been over a week since we got here. I'm sure we're ready for it, Sato remarked, earning a shining smile from the redhead in return. before turning and yelling out to Darkshine, who just came back from the bathroom. "Darkshine, can we please use the gravity machine now?" Kirishima begged, basically running up next to the giant, surprising him slightly. Sure. I'm pretty sure you guys are ready for it at this moment, albeit at a somewhat lower level," Darkshine said as he made his way over to the machine, eagerly followed by the two teenagers behind him. "Alright, before we begin, I'll list out how this machine works and how the training with it will commence." Darkshine then went on to state how the machine applied gravity vertically on the body and described the effect it will have on the teens, which included obviously increasing the mass of the occupant inside, but increasing the pressure the occupant would receive. How they will find it hard to breathe. Their blood would and heart would begin to pump faster and harder to compensate for the extra strain the body would experience. It was for this reason why it was a dangerous process to do without supervision. After going through everything he believed to be important. "Alright, who's going in first?" Darkshine gestured to the machine. Both teens, excited to try out the new invention, both wanted to go first, eagerly volunteering for first dibs, and after a quick game of rock, paper, scissors, Kirishima quickly came out on top to the begrudging look of Sato. Kirishima got into the machine and after a brief prepping period held out a hands up for Darkshine to start the machine. "Alright, I'm going to start you guys off at 3x gravity," Darkshine said as he activated the machine. Kirishima instantly felt his heart begin to pump faster and his hearing slightly lessen. He tested raising and lowering his arms and legs, feeling the increased effort needed to try and move just a single part of his body, but it was manageable for him. He looked up to Darkshine and spoke, feeling the extra effort just to form the words in his mouth. "Turn it up," Kirishima's voice made it out of the machine. "Alright, we're going to 4x gravity now." Kirishima instantly noticed how on top of being heavier, he felt his movements become sluggish. His eyesight started to slightly falter, but he was okay for the most part to continue to move his arms and legs freely. Darkshine advised the teen to start doing basic exercises while inside, like jumping jack, legs lifts, and handstands, which Kirishima managed to do mostly just fine before becoming more sluggish at the end, nearly falling during his handstand push-ups. Darkshine took that as his cue for the teen to stop, shutting down the machine and letting the teen exit. He looked stumped as he got out of the machine, coming back to normal gravity. Everything felt lighter, and his increased heart rate took a moment to calm down, having to take a seat to get fully situated. Sato was next, and having seen Kirishima go in, was more confident in himself to manage the same thing. Just like previously, Darkshine started with 3x the gravity just for the teen to experience and get a feel for the effect that the increased gravity would have on the body. After some time to acclimate to the changes to his body, Sato nodded and Darkshine obliged by turning up the dial. The teen immediately went to work performing the exercises that he sent his friend do: 30 jumping jacks, leg lifts, and standing push-ups. He thought of trying to one-up his friends by increasing the gravity even more, but instead he just decided to do more exercises while under the same gravity, deciding to do 30 squats as well before faltering out and nearly falling towards the ground. He felt that familiar numbness of his quirk on his mind before suddenly being lifted when the machine turned off. Sato walked out and felt his head instantly begin to clear again. His heart rate and pulse was still accelerated, so he decided to sit along with Kirishima. Darkshine noted that this was a good time for their break and went into the machine himself before setting a timer and putting it on its max setting of 100. The two teens stared in bewilderment as they saw the man effortlessly move around like nothing had changed at all. "Darkshine is surely something," Kirishima said, breathing heavily as he looked to Sato. "Yeah man, I would probably be crushed in there," Sato said through heavy pants of his own. As the minutes ticked down and Darkshine time in the machine came to an end, and he looked as refreshed as he walked in. Kirishima was curious when Sato stuck with them throughout the day. "You don't have anything with Pig God today?" "Nah, not today. He had some other things to deal with today and told me to just stay with you all for now," Sato remarked. "Well, in that case, how about a friendly spar between the two of you?" Darkshine said. "Hell yeah, I'm down," Kirishima said, hearting his fist some and turning to Sato. "Sure, it's been a while since I went up against you," Sato replied. The two teens went over to the boxing ring in the back of the gym and got into opposite corners as Darkshine acted as referee. He counted the teens down before officially starting the match. Sato quickly popped one of his sweet pills that he calls them and charged towards Kirishima, who reacted by quickly hardening his body, softening the blow slightly, but still reeling from the pain of the punch. He attempted to retaliate with a punch of his own, but he dodged out of the way before the hit could land. Another punch rocked Kirishima in the side of the head, forcing him back one step as well. Quickly raising his hands to guard his face from another flurry of blows, he knew the next strike would probably be aimed at his gut, so he retaliated in kind. Both blows struck home in dead center, both teens clutching their stomach in pain. Kirishima recovered faster than Sato did, however, and went on the offensive, launching a right haymaker that Sato quickly ducked before being caught by the second haymaker from the left side, staggering the man back somewhat, but not before Sato could get off a jab straight into Kirishima's cheek. The fight continued back and forth for some time. The two teens traded blow after blow, and ultimately it was Kirishima to come out on top. After 10 minutes of fighting, being the sportsman he was, Kirishima helped him get up from the floor as Sato congratulated him on his victory. "Why didn't you use that super mode you have?" Darkshine questioned. "Oh, you mean unbreakable? Well, it would be a little unfair to have a fight with some that can't damage you, so I didn't use it," Kirishima mentioned. "He's right, I definitely couldn't hurt him in that form. If someone like Makia couldn't, I would probably just end up hurting my hand," Sato said with a chuckle. "You really evolved your quirk, while I just squandered my time with mine," Sato said disparagingly. "Hey man, it's alright. I'm sure you're gonna find something cool with your quirk as well, and look on the bright side, you've been training wrong all this time, but you still made it into UA. The only reason I probably won right now was that I'm used to talking hits." Kirishima tried to ensure his friend earned a smile in response and a raised fist which he bumped. "That's the spirit. Let's get to training right away. That fight was just what your muscles need to get their engines going completely," Darkshine said as he went back over to the weight machines, followed by the Kirishima and Sato. "Think outside the box, Tank Topper, Shoji." Shoji, Tank Philosopher, and Tank Girl were currently in the weight machine room inside of the Tank Top headquarters. As he worked alongside them, he realized that a number of the machines mostly focused on the upper body, ignoring the lower body completely. He decided to ask his two companions about this odd peculiarity. "Remember what I told you about the Chosen One? Too large to fit inside of any shirt besides a tank top." While not believing in such prophecy, they do believe that the tank top's powers solely rely on one upper body, the Tank Top Philosopher said. Shoji simply nodded his head and looked to Tank Girl for maybe a more normal explanation that wouldn't leave him more confused than when he asked his question. "I don't know, it's some weird infatuation with muscles. Maybe we still have our own leg days, but it's just not the main focus. Most of the tank toppers fight with their hands, not their legs anyways, so they may just not find the need to work on their legs as much," Tank Girl offered with a shrug, earning a nod from Shoji, understanding them a bit more from the conversation. "You're much the same in that regard. So far I've only seen you punch when you enter combat," Tank Philosopher said. "Well, when you can sprout as many arms as I can, it's only natural. An overwhelming number of blows should make quick work of my opponents, which don't usually even have half as many arms," Shoji stated confidently, earning a chuckle from the girl beside him. "Well, traditionally I would agree with you, but what if someone or some monster is just fast enough to keep up with them regardless? I'm sure Tank Philosopher could dodge all of your punches no matter how many arms you sprout up, and if I'm remembering correctly, I didn't fare too badly against you when we had our spar last week," she said with a cheeky smile. Shoji thought back to his world and his fight in the arena with that Energizer guy. "You correct that. There are things I can try to improve one when using my ability, but I'm not sure how. What other things could I create from the human body to fight better?" He queried his seniors for an answer. "I don't know. I'm still curious how your additional arms work. Are they just as strong as your normal ones? Does training with them help them grow stronger?" Tank Girl speaking her thoughts out loud, not really looking for an answer. Before he could answer one of her rambling questions, Tank Philosopher spoke his thoughts in his team's direction. "I think you're going about it all wrong. Maybe you don't need to create anything more but change the angle of your attacks," Tank Philosopher said, taking a break from his machine to look at the teen who also stopped working out to listen to what the hero had to say. "What do you mean by changing the angle of attack?" Shoji questioned. Was he suggesting not to aim at the opponent or to target a specific part of the opponent specifically? The older hero gestured to the ring and the three went over towards the area. Tank Girl waited outside while they got inside. "Attack me like I'm a real threat. Don't hold back," Tank Philosopher said as he put his book down at the edge of the ring before returning to the center of the ring. Shoji nodded his head and sprouted out multiple arms as Tank Philosopher signaled for him to begin. He began to throw multiple punches at his mentor. His octo blow at full swing, but to his surprise most of his attacks were missing, and those that didn't outright directly miss were blocked by the man's hands. After a couple of minutes, Shoji began to slow down and eventually stop himself. "You see, I told you, you wouldn't have been able to hit him even if you tried," Tank Girl said from the sidelines. "I wanted to display the hazards of the way you're fighting. If the opponent can perceive and outmaneuver your attacks, it is just a waste of energy. However, if you can change the trajectory of your attacks, then you can become more unpredictable and harder to anticipate." Philosopher began. "And how do you expect me to do that?" Shoji questioned. "Well, depends on how your arms work really. When you create something, does it immediately take shape, or can you choose when that part sprouts out?" Tank Philosopher asked. "If I understand what you're saying, then yes, when I create eyes or ears, I can create them from on top of the extensions," Shoji said, demonstrating it by growing an extension from his back with the metal undersuit seeming like living metal that culminated at the end with a metallic ear. "Excellent, now do something similar with your hands, grow an appendage outwards, and then from that appendage launch your punch. This could allow you to attack from multiple angles that your opponent may not expect," Tank Philosopher concluded. "Well, I never tried something like that, but it's worth a shot," Shoji complied, growing out an appendage and then starting to create an arm with a fist from that appendage. It worked, but the punch was incredibly flimsy, mostly flopping to the ground, lacking power. "It seems that something like this lacks the leverage to work," Shoji commented. "Don't give up too soon, you just need to increase the speed of your creation. Not unlike a regular punch that you can wind up with your body. Think of when you're creating the arm and fist as the wind-up, create it as fast as possible and have it explode out," Tank Philosopher instructed. Shoji nodded his head and tried to do as his instructor said. He grew out an appendage again and tried to explosively push out his fist from that appendage. The technique worked much better that time. The fist launched forward before quickly slowing down and falling towards the ground. "Woohoo! There you go, Shoji!" Tank Girl cheered from the side. "Yes, there it is. If you can evolve that technique, you can attack your opponents from different angles and throw them off, allowing you to follow up with your main barrage," Tank Top Philosopher commented. Shoji nodded in understanding, but as he began to reel in his extended arm, he began to think about if he missed the attack it would leave him extremely exposed for counterattack, but he figured that it was just a dupliarms. It didn't really matter if the opponent took the chance to attack it. In fact, it could act as bait to avoid the opponent attacking him directly as well. "All right, I'll work on it," Shoji said with finality as he continued to try and attempt to use his new style of attack. He also was trying to think of a name for this style of fighting. He was able to practice his form for about 2 hours before the monster's alarms caught his attention. The location was incredibly close by, Tank Philosopher Tank Girl said, but he never realized that close meant right outside their building. As the three made their way outside, the stranger noticed them. The man was human, but his muscles were somewhat unnatural compared to his small frame. His hands were covered in what looked like boxing gloves, but they were seemingly fused into his skin. They were a dark red color that seemingly pulsed as he was finished punching a nearby wall, leaving an impact crater that was much bigger than he would expect for what the punch seemed to expect. The man had a fairly standard face, but a sharp chin with glowing red hair. "The tank tops finally, bring me your boss, I'll pummel him right here. Right now." The stranger started slamming his fists together, which pulsed again. "Can't we just talk about this?" Tank Girl said, exasperated. Today was supposed to be their training day, not dealing with monsters or weirdos. "Unfortunate to tell you, he's not here today." "He's out," Tank Philosopher said, reading his book. "Well, that's too bad for you three. I'll pummel you three instead as a message," the stranger remarked. "He seems serious. Shoji, do us a favor and restrain him for us," Tank Philosopher said as he closed his book and looked towards the teen. "Me? Wouldn't it just be better if we just restrained him together? Shoji questioned. And deprive the gentleman of the one-on-one fight that he so desperately craves. He would only be more spiteful if we beat him that way. Tank Philosopher reasoned. We know you got this, Tentacle. Go get him, Tank Girl said, shoving him towards the walking onlooker. He gave an exaggerated look back at the two, and in return all he received back was a sly smile and thumbs up. He rolled his eyes and turned back around to the mysterious boxer and got ready for a fight. Why do you want to fight Tank Top Master anyways? Shoji asked the stranger. That guy wouldn't let me join the Tank Tops, saying my signature jabs were too weak. So I trained and trained my jabs, and now no one can withstand many of them. I'll kick his ass them, I'll take over the Tank Tops myself, he stated. All this just because he wouldn't let you join. Isn't that a bit childish? Shoji tried to dissuade him, only achieving the opposite. I'll show you childish, right here, he yelled. He wasn't lying about the speed of his jabs. They were incredibly quick. He almost didn't realize when the blow had struck him, landing directly on his right cheek, but Tank Top Master was also right when he deduced they didn't have much power. He recovered quickly and shot out his hands to try and grab the individual, but each hand as they drew close was punched away by a flurry of jabs from the man, the last of which was completely blown back, surprising Shoji somewhat with the power behind the last shot. He quickly recovered his arms back to himself and turned them into fist. He performed his famous octo blow technique, fitting each of them forwards at different intervals. The boxer took this as a challenge, firing back with multiple jabs to match the number of punches coming his way. He was mostly successful. Shoji had successfully landed a number of punches into the stranger's stomach and face, but occasionally the jabs and punches would clash and Shoji started to realize that they were seemingly getting stronger. At first, when their fist clashed, it would merely cancel each other out, but after a number of clashes he would start to completely blow back Shoji's hands. The exchange lasted only a few minutes, but soon enough most of Shoji's dupli arms were blown back before the stranger took his chance to launch another jab straight into Shoji's stomach, which he blocked with his inner hands, but the force of the blow still sent him skirting back a couple of feet. Haha, you like that? The more I hit something the stronger my jabs become, the strange bragged, before dashing forward again to deliver a flurry of jabs, forcing Shoji to dodge out of the way before he launched his arms out again to strike, but the three arms were completely blown away by the jabs. He noticed the gloves or hands were continuing to pulse at an even quicker pace. Shoji thought quickly as the man charged again. He used his hands to grab a sewer cover and used it to block the fist coming towards him. It didn't have nearly as much weight behind it that it did previously. He used it for defense as he struck out again with his duple arms, but they were swiftly blown away, but not without landing some hits. The boxer went to strike again and hit the makeshift shield, denting the metal plating before Shoji decided to throw it away. The boxer went to strike again, but was cut off guard as a punch suddenly eclipsed the top of his head. Before he could realize what hit him, another punch came from the side, knocking him off balance, giving Shoji enough time to grab the man's hands and legs, lifting him off the ground before slamming him down into the concrete, knocking the boxer unconscious. "Let's go, Shoji," Tank Girl screamed from the sidelines as she raced forward to jump on the teen's back. "It seems that new move came in handy, now didn't it?" Tank Philosopher said with a smile. In Shoji's last attack, he stationed 2 nodes above and to the right of the boxer. Knowing that his dupli arms would get blown away again, he held those nodes in the prime position to strike after the boxer assumed he was disarmed. Shoji shook Tank Girl off him and replied, "It sure did, and I learned it just in the nick of time too. It was a little too convenient," Shoji said skeptically, starting to actually think what this man says about that book may be true. "I wish I could say it was all planned, but unfortunately I cannot," Tank Philosopher said with a sly grin which made Shoji doubt if what he said was true or not. "Please don't let this nut job get to you. Convenient timing can happen from time to time," Tank Girl remarked. "You're correct about that," Shoji replied. "Anyways, now that we must wait for the association to arrive, we could just call this a break," Tank Philosopher said, earning a chipper reply from Tank Girl and a nod of the head from Shoji as they picked the mysterious boxer up and carried him inside the gym. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 8. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Lumpay Spark 3 on fanfiction.net. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.